This is Reality Dispatch, written by Jim Mins.
The sweat was dripping down the back of her neck, and she couldn't attend to it, which irked her even more. In her left hand, she held 3 spray bottles of various chemicals, and in her right were the wipers used on the previous room, which she thought unwise to drape over her back to soak up the beads. She was on the verge of a breakdown, but held her nerve by gripping the cleaning utensils harder than necessary. Her manager and colleague was ingratiating herself with the easier job of pushing the cleaning tray, its confined and neatly ordered contents all lined up in order of usage. "It's the next wing, Meredith," the manager said as she continued to push the tray. Meredith snorted in response. She wanted to cry. 20 hours earlier, she had been at home for a family meeting, unscheduled. Her younger brother was in trouble with the gangs that roamed the neighborhoods. He had been involved in their illegal trades. Now he owed them money, and the family was being shaken down. Her father had already been accosted in the street for the sums that would satisfy the Kent Street mob. He didn't have it. None of them did. And David's antics threatened to tear the entire family apart. If the debt wasn't paid, it would be with his life. They arrived at room 33313 on the 30th floor. The wide-open windows of the hall stretched out along the wing, showcasing the crashing waves from the beach that bellowed below. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon, ready to pounce. The manager knocked. "Housekeeping," she announced. They both waited. She knocked again and repeated herself. Silence. The manager removed her house key and scanned the E-bar to grant access. They entered the room with the cart leading the way. The manager focused her tasks on the bathroom first and foremost. "You make the bed and wipe the windows and tabletops," she instructed. "Next room, we'll swap." Meredith nodded in agreement and went to work on the living area. The studio was unkempt and looked deserted, as it should have been. The occupants had newly checked out. It was midday with the 11 o'clock deadline long past. She began to pat down the sheets and the cushions of the adjoining couch. She laid them in a pile on the floor and headed for the rack to obtain fresh ones. The pillows fell to the floor, and as she lifted the thick set to remove the protective covers, a heavy sack tumbled from the sheets and dropped to the floor with a thud. It was a pouch with a zip-up top, not unlike a high-class pencil case. Meredith looked up to see if Sabrina would venture into the main living area. She tiptoed over and saw her manager on her hands and knees, scrubbing away at a dank strip of grout. Her diligence would go unnoticed by the next guest. Still, she prided herself on her attention to detail. This bought Meredith time. She jogged back to the pouch. She knelt beside the bed, using it as a shield in case of discovery, and unzipped the pouch for a look inside. Soon its heaviness gave away the secrets to its weight and bulk. Inside were dollar bills, thousands of them, all laid out in clumps of hundreds. She ran a thumb along the edge and fanned them out like a deck of cards. She copped a breeze from one bundle and had a smell. It smelt fresh. She had never been exposed to such a smell before. The smell of wealth, the smell of a reduction in problems, the smell of a happier life than the one she now lived. The buzzer to the front door sounded, and the latch clicked open. Instinctively, she threw the satchel under the bed without zipping it up and pretended to tuck in the dirty sheets that had been dislodged. The previous guest was accompanied by the hotel manager, who persuaded him to wait outside while he conducted a sweep of the room. "Please, trust me. It's very sensitive material. I need to maintain confidentiality," the guest explained, pushing the manager back as the room door swung closed. "I'll be 5 minutes," he pleaded. "Okay, 5 minutes," the manager said. The door closed, and the guest stood in the doorway, staring at Meredith, who was on her knees beside the bed. They locked eyes for a full minute. Neither said anything. Sabrina exited the bathroom at the sound of the commotion. "Can we help you?" she asked. "I've left something in here." "Oh, well, we haven't seen anything. Mind if I look around? We're trying to clean for the next guests. It won't take a minute." The manager overheard the exchange and chimed in from the hallway. "It's okay, Sabrina. It's Anton here. I'm giving permission to Mr. Sinclair to look for his lost items," he explained through the thick oakwood door. Sabrina shrugged and returned to her bathroom duties. The man, never breaking his stare at Meredith, began walking forward. "Have you seen anything out of place?" he asked. She was too nervous to respond. She'd had the answer to all of her family's problems in the palm of her hand. For one instant, her situation had resolved. And now here he was, keeping the dilemma alive. She shook her head. "Nothing at all?" he asked again, scanning the room. She shook her head. He gave her a look of disbelief and dropped to his knees. They knelt in front of one another. Meredith felt the discomfort of a stranger kneeling before her, staring indignantly. Her instinct was to stand, and so she did. She scratched at her elbows, a further tell of her inability to hold a poker face. The man kept his eyes on her as he lowered his body to the floor. At the last moment, he swiveled his head and looked under the bed. Maybe it's gone, she thought. Maybe he can't see it. He reached his hand inside and extracted the satchel. He held it to his chest as he rose back to his knees, then stood to face her again, his glare more pronounced now that he'd confirmed her deliberate obfuscation. Satisfied that he had made her uncomfortable, he looked into the satchel and scanned its contents briefly before zipping it up, turning on his heel and heading for the door. As it closed, she breathed out. The sadness returned. She got back on her knees and continued to tuck in the sheets that had been displaced. She walked over to the fresh sheets and began sorting them into the layers that corresponded to the bedding requirements. "You want me to take over?" Sabrina asked, sticking her head out of the bathroom. "I'm almost done." Meredith shook her head. "Listen, I don't know what's going on with you, but we are behind today. Check-in is an hour away, and we have 3 more rooms to attend to." Sabrina cried. "I'm sorry," said Meredith mid-sheet fold. "I'll go faster. How much more do you have to do?" "Just this, and I'm done." "Okay, well, meet me at 3318, will you?" Sabrina loaded up her cart and opened the room door to trundle it down the hallway. The door slammed shut behind her. As the bolt and latch clicked, Meredith felt like crying once more. She patted down the pillows that had fallen to the left of the bed and placed new covers on them. The bed was made. She stepped back to take another look at it before leaving the room for good. Then she was struck by an urge, an instinct, something tickling the back of her senses. "Take another look," it said. She walked over to the bed, this time adjacent to the pillows, and lowered her head to the underpass of the bedhead. Looking underneath, in the far distance and almost touching the back wall, right in the dead center, obscured by shadows but unmistakable in its contours, a thick wad of cash, all 100s. It must have been dislodged when she threw the satchel underneath. She got to her feet and swiveled the bed away from the back wall, exposing the money to daylight. It sat there, waiting for her. She grabbed it and placed it inside her uniform pocket, zipping the layers for safety. She moved the bed back against the wall and headed for the front door. As she stood in the hall, watching the room door close and lock behind her, she could hear the ding of the elevator and the voices of the previous guest and Anton, the manager. Very soon, they would turn the corner and appear in the hallway. She could almost make out their conversation. Something else was left behind. The man needed it. It was urgent. She jumped on her tiptoes and ran toward 3318, the safety of Sabrina. On the way, she whispered a Hail Mary and thought of her brother.
For more stories of fact-based fiction, head to jimmins.substack.com.